Rotarian, you know what four-way means? If you don't, you can ask me afterwards. I've been blessed over my life to have had quite a bit of family memorabilia passed down to me. And among those items are photos, original black and white prints of my great-great-grandparents. Their last name was Deering. And these photos were taken in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and I know you've probably seen this kind of a photo, you know, people dressed in their Sunday best in a photographer's studio, standing or sitting very stiffly, not smiling, like mannequins, you know, afraid of moving lest they spoil the exposure. And where was I going to go after that? Let's see. Where was I going to go after that? Let's see.
Memorabilia, your family.
Yes. At any rate, oh my goodness, I've never had this happen before. Let's see. Give me just a moment. Okay, I'm blanking, but I'll trudge on. So, oh, thank you, Lord. Okay. And while it's wonderful having these photos, they don't tell me everything, or very much at all, about the people in them. Well, the way, what story I'm going to relate to you this evening, if I can remember all the rest of it, is about a discovery I made that helped lend a bit of color to those photos. Now, I came into being on this earth of ours in 1956, and in addition to my parents, one of the earliest and most loving presences in my life was my grandmother, Alice Pender, and I called her Gram. I was Gram's first grandchild, and I was the first of many grandchildren and great-grandchildren to come. But once Gram told me that while she loved all of us, there was something kind of special about the first one. So I think I enjoyed a slightly elevated status, which was evident early on because Gram and her sister Eileen owned and operated a children's clothing store. And if you saw any of my photos from my early childhood days, you'd see I was a pretty snappy dresser. So I think she funneled a lot of the store's inventory in my direction. Now, Gram was born in 1911, and she lived during her early years with her parents and her siblings, and her grandparents, the Deerings, in the home that the Deerings owned on Staten Island, New York. Now, from what she told me, Grandpa Deering was a fairly beneficent grandfather. He would, well, first of all, he was a policeman. He was a lieutenant in the New York City Police Department. And whenever Gram or her brothers and sisters said they needed or wanted something, he would take them into New York City on shopping excursions. He'd also bring them into the city for big events in Manhattan, like ticker tape parades, and I'm sure being a police officer got them, great viewing positions, great seats. And so Graham really came to love New York City. Now, she was old enough to remember some of the goings-on, some of the events around World War I. Of course, then the family went through the Great Depression and World War II, and on and on. And she stored up all those experiences, not just of her own, but of the rest of her family as well, and in later years, shared them with me. Now, Gram was a bit of a party animal. She loved a great time. She was very social, loved to talk, And she loved, luckily for me, to tell stories. And over the years, I proved a very, very willing audience for her. The thing that was great about her stories was that Graham's side of the family was very large, very extended. And so I didn't get to see a lot of these people very often. And so her stories opened a window for me onto that side of the family, and taught me a lot about the character of and the characters in my family. Anyway, we're going to jump ahead. Graham's been in my life now many, many years. The year is 1996. And I finally come to the realization that she is not going to be in my life forever. And I wondered, well, what could I do? I wanted to preserve some of her essence. And of course, a lot of the stories that she told me while I was growing up. Now, I had a career in video production, so the logical thing for me to do was to ask her if she would sit for an interview, and then I'd be able to take that interview and create a short documentary for the family. She was only too happy to do that, so we set a date, and 1 or 2 weeks before that, she gave me a phone call, and she asked me to take her over to her sister Eileen's house. She wanted to spend the weekend. So I did that, and before I left, after dropping her off, I sat kind of in the background in the living room and listened to the 2 sisters as they reminisced. And at one point, Graham brought up the name of Grandma Deering. And after a beat, Eileen piped up and she asked, isn't she the one who set the fires? Wait, what? Now, I knew very little about Grandma Deering, but I had never heard her name and set the fires, in the same sense. So I called a timeout. And I asked Graham if she would tell me what all this fire business was about. Well, it turns out that Grandma Deering was a bit of a firebug. Not a full-blown arsonist, luckily. But, well, to give you a for instance, in the backyard of their home, they had a big metal can, probably one of those old-fashioned garbage cans. And when the mood moved her, she would gather up whatever passed for kindling, and she'd fill the can and light it ablaze, and I guess just stand back and, and enjoy the flames. I don't know what the neighbors might have thought of this, but luckily she never caught any of the other nearby houses on fire, luckily. And by the way, anything, absolutely anything that could pass as kindling could go into that can. Graham told me that she got home after a vacation with her family one year and to find her dollhouse missing. And there really wasn't much question about where it went. Now, Grandma Deering's strange relationship with fire and heat also extended to her cooking techniques. I don't know if you've ever seen one of these, but their house had a big old coal-burning furnace in the basement. You'd have a big firebox. I saw one of these at another grandparent's house once. Big firebox, and then branching off of it, a multitude of ducts and arms going to all the different rooms in the house. And to me, as a kid, it looked like kind of a big inverted octopus. Well, when Grandma Deering was going to cook steaks, she did not cook them on the stovetop. She would put them on a grate of some kind and carry them down to the basement, open the furnace door, and shove them in. I can only imagine how those steaks turned out, but that was her technique. Very well charred broiled, I would imagine. But Graham told me that the most interesting meals were those when peas were on the menu. That's because Grandma Deering would have gone to the market, would have bought fresh peas, in the shells, brought them home, shelled them, cooked them, and burnt them. And then she'd open a can of peas. And he goes, well, when Grandpa Deering complained that they didn't taste like fresh peas, she would just get up in a huff, go into the kitchen, and come back with her hands filled with the empty pea pods. What could you say at that point? In fact, Graham said she thought Grandpa Deering never had a fresh pea during his entire married life. So, kind of a funny family story, you know, but what it allowed me to do is transform these folks from those black and white, two-dimensional images to real three-dimensional flesh and blood breathing people, with a lot of color too. And so I'll always be grateful for that. And I asked Graham, after she told me all this information, to sum up, if she could, Grandma Deering for me. And she waited a beat, and then she cracked a little smile, and let out a sigh. And she said simply, she was a pig. Thank you very much.